Hello everyone, so welcome back to another stream. I don't know how well this is gonna go. It's a lot of improv, but anyway, let's get into this. This is it's gonna be a breakdown of all of the third anniversary AMA for Mass Builder. There's gonna be a lot of talking in here, but what I hope to glean from this is a lot of information about what's going on with the dev team, like troubles that they might have, future stuff that they plan on doing. And we're just going to go into this, and hopefully uh, we can get something out of it. So stick around, chat's available, if you want to join in, but we're going to be doing a lot of reading. Anyway, let's start. As there's almost 200 questions asked in total, we just closed the forms yesterday. We honestly didn't have enough time to answer everything to post today, and thus we decided to separate this AMA into two pieces. One for this week, answering everything regarding features and gameplay questions, and next week will be regarding customization, as well as what to show you. The community has sent in, who have sent, this is weird, askers who have sent in the name will find the names in quotes before the questions. Okay, like my brain wasn't quite getting around how that was worded. That's why I messed up there. But yeah, we answer every question asked, so if it seems we can cut your questions off, you should be able to find them in another category. If questions ask similar things, we put them together. They're meant to be grouped together anyway. If it looks like we missed your question or misunderstood it, feel free to ask again in the comments section. Okay. So let's see here. We go down. Features and quality of life. Tsubasa, who I've seen post a lot recently, says, "Hello, other members of Vermilion Digital. For some reason, if an accessory's pitch is 90 degrees or somewhere close to it, the yaw and the roll would not roll correctly. They would behave as if they are the same thing entirely. Since this makes adjusting accessories extremely difficult, can I ask that a patch be issued as such to address this problem in 0.9 or later?" Let's see, they've said, "We've already known and have been with this bug internally for quite a while, honestly. It's a difficult bug to fix and will be solved, but we don't know when." Okay, so yeah, some can be hard to sort of figure out what the problem is and then solve without breaking other things. So yeah, I can see that. That one might not be a critical one at the moment, but it'll definitely improve quality of life if it's fixed. Raining, I see raining around quite a lot actually, again as well. Will there be a thing in the mission menus for seeing mission drop blueprints or for parts or whatever? Or will it be left up to the wiki players? Yeah, because a lot of this stuff is left up for the wiki to cover right now. No, there won't be something like that added. This is something we wanted to leave to players' agency in order to figure it out. We do not want to provide all the information available, and wanted players to have the excitement of discovery and to discuss amongst each other the findings, hence the player-made wiki. One can still ask us, and we'll give them straight answers onto where each blueprints are dropped, though. We've provided that favor multiple times. Yeah, they've done that to me on stream. Like, I see what they're going for. The whole thing here is, when you read into that, they like players talking amongst themselves and kind of figuring this out. And while it would be a nice quality of life improvement for players to get things like they have on, say, Gundam Breaker, or most recently at the point of recording this or streaming it, like with SD Gundam Battle Alliance, where they actually tell you what part of the suit is in each level so that you can go ahead and grind for them. While that is nice, I can see what they've done here. They've kind of sacrificed that convenience for the sake of having the community engage with each other. That's, I suppose that's not too bad, provided they constantly provide all of the newer stuff that they plan on adding in the challenge missions as well. Because the challenge missions automatically give you all of the the item pool or accessory pool anyway to begin with. So that's not too bad. It's a weird choice, but I can see where they're coming from. Player engagement in that sense, yeah, it's important to them. So yeah, they've taken convenience away for the sake of having players talk to each other, which is cool. You know, it gets the community active. TK says, is there going to be a system where we can upload mass units for others to download, for others to download and use, or maybe turn them into codes so that people can enter, something like that? Redgrave says, seeing amazing creations by the community, will there be methods of sharing them? A workshop or an in-game browser? These are all grouped together. So yeah, this is all just about how can we share stuff easier. Let's see. There's Rating again, just chiming in as well. Will there be a way for players to post their creations and have others download them in-game? This is for those who have a very hard time creating stuff, either due to lack of ideas or ideas they have, but overall it's hard for them to put together. So basically, just people that can't do as well, seemingly. Yes, we wanted an official system to share builds between each other. We mentioned this last year, before starting development of 0.9, that we wanted to work on what we call a preset system that allows builds pieces of completed parts alongside accessories to be shared internally between players, frame and externally between players through usage of codes or export files. However, we do not have any spare time at all. Just look at how long 0.9 is taking, and thus we haven't had the chance to work on it yet. It will be there. There will be a method, we promise. Okay, so in future, maybe? They promise it, but it's one of those whole things of it's like it's not a priority for them right now. They just want to obviously work on the main portions and actually completing the game. So while it'd be nice if players had access to that, there'd be a lot more work, like they've said, that goes into it. So it's a case of, yeah, we do want to put this in, and we promise we'll work on it at some point, but not right now. Threx, I think I've pronounced that right, says, of the features confirmed in previous AMAs, many have been since cancelled or shelved indefinitely due to complexity, such as extending the joint sliders further. This is something I've not looked at properly, so this is interesting to hear. Are there any features previously confirmed in AMAs which have since been cancelled, but have not been outright stated as such, you think would be better for people not to hold out undue hope for seeing in the near future? Okay, so basically, have you announced, or have you still got stuff in the works here that you've announced previously that you've not cancelled yet? But, you know, it's like people shouldn't hold out hopes for because of how long it's taking to do stuff. They've said, let me answer it like this. When we answered AMAs, we have everyone in the team sit around together and look at the possibility and feasibility of the request. If everyone on the team can agree to work on it, then we'll answer the AMA question with acceptance. If it's something that one of us disagrees with, we'll just outright deny the suggestions or request. So anything that's answered along the lines of surely we'll do it is still out there, just we don't know when we'll work on it. Like slow-firing shooters, dual-wielding shielded shooters, or dual-wielding and shielded shooters, sorry. I guess aerial and low-gravity missions are out of the window now, though. That's one thing we're sure the game is not designed for, and after exploring how we can make it without much change from what our game is designed for, we don't think it'll be fun. So we're scrapping that to get all together. Oh, interesting. Interesting indeed. Like, so they're getting rid of anything else that could be done like that? Like, low grav? Low grav and aerial just being out the window? Like, off the top of my head, when I'm thinking about other games that have done stuff like this, like, low gravity surely can't be that hard to change in engine. I swear there's a default setting or something for coding it really easy in Unreal, but it depends on how it works with everything else. The problem is, and I might be saying this too early, I'll have to read into this more, but if this starts to read like we can't do this because it'll break stuff, or we can't do this because it's too hard to implement at the moment too often, it might be a case of they've got the code to a point where if they change small things, then it might end up breaking too much, so they kind of put off making any changes in hopes that they don't break more, which I can understand. But it might give us an idea of like how fragile the code is at the moment as well. I don't think there's anything that we promised to do and later cancelled in the old AMAs left. Things that we mentioned we'll explore or we'll investigate. We discuss amongst ourselves and leave it at that. It's something we agree on. We'll put, or if it's something we agree on, we'll put them in our development pipeline, just like the quality of life upgrades we've shown in the past. Lots of them are AMA requests and suggestions through Discord and the feedback hub. We just don't talk about it and only announce when we're ready. Why? Honestly, we've seen people misunderstanding or twisting lots of our words. That can happen quite a lot online. I know that. And when we try to de-escalate any of them, it goes further beyond and creates friction between the devs and the players, which you might have noticed for a while now. Not really. So unless people ask us directly, we will not talk about any of our internal discussions or provide any leaks on what we're working on, aside from work in progress posts, honestly. That's fine. That's fine. We don't know why or when development steered itself into devs versus the player mindset, but we honestly don't want to move it further into that territory. I think it's more people here at this point ask a lot of the devs thinking, oh, this is easy, other games have done it. But depending on how Vermilion are treating this, it might not be as easy as people think or say. Like, I'm guilty of it now in this video, but yeah, it's going to be interesting going forwards. It literally sounds like they're having quite a bit of a problem with players doing that. Going forwards, I think they should really kind of figure out a good way of addressing this. Maybe, like, saying what is actually able to be worked on instead of potentially just being like, we'd like to work on this. Don't give people hope, just have a focused update that shows exactly what you're doing. And then if somebody asks about it, it's just a case of, yeah, we'll try and get round to it and just leave it at that, I don't know whether that would be the better approach, but Billie Jean says, are you going to improve the melee effect system? I very like the Blade Wave. If we're talking about particles, yes, we're improving them and making visuals better. If you're talking about text and whatnot, the answer is also yes, we're making melee feel better to use through the means that we have. Shoga says, will the game have achievements, stable and ready? Not in 0.4 or 0.5, where they were introduced and quickly removed. Right before the game is released in its 1.0 state, we will bring back achievements, or the achievement system, since at that point, nothing much will be changed anymore. Balancing issues should be mostly solved, and we can settle on what's the challenge to complete. Okay, so their idea is when they hit 1.0 then, is that they hope that the game will be out there in its basic state, that they shouldn't have to do too much more to it. Like, they say that, balancing issues should mostly be resolved, but the problem with that is balancing, I think, is one of those things where it's a bit of to and fro between the devs and the players, and I don't think it's something that you can easily turn around and just check off as, oh yeah, we've definitely solved this, because people play it in different ways. Like, you have the new stuff that's going to be introduced for multiplayer and things that could again affect the balancing. It's things to look at in future, and a lot of things like speedrunning and stuff that can potentially bring up balance issues. I think that's something that doesn't look like they're thinking about much at the moment, but it's something to be addressed down the line if it's brought up. I don't particularly agree with the way that they're kind of just pushing that kind of off here and be like, yeah, we'll have it done. I like their optimism. That's at least something I like. Hey, Classic! Nice to see you there. That reminds me, I'll bring up the chat here so I can actually see it. Anubis says, for posing and taking pictures with your M.A.S.S units, could there be any option down the line to take a picture of multiple M.A.S.S units in various poses? I say this because this isn't so much gameplay, but merely a builder collector sort of thing. That would be really cool instead of like photoshopping things like people do at the moment. Yes, we've answered this last year, and it's something we have plans for. However, it will take a long time to develop such a system, as it's very difficult from the current photography mode itself, or very different, sorry. Basically, a large new system must be developed in order to take multiple units into photo mode. Just to quote last year's AMA, it's not going to be soon. Basically, another kind of photo mode in itself. It's a lot to work on how to select and where to place each unit and which kind of pose for unit 1 or 2 or whatever, effects available, stuff like that. It's a whole new thing, but we plan on looking at it or going into it. That's going to be interesting for them, but I reckon that's going to be after 1.0. The way that this is starting to sound is like, we would like to do this, but because of how much trouble things are at the moment, we would like to address this later down the line after we've got the game out. This is what it's starting to sound like. I just mentioned that I didn't want to jump to conclusions too quickly, but it's definitely starting to sound like that. Talbalago, I think that is. And Anonymous says, are there any plans to let us make our own custom poses? Okay. Hey, Anubis. Nice to see you there. We will quote last year's answers since they're still the same. Customizable poses have too many problems accompanying them. Oh, interesting. In both currently and in long term. There is a reason why we released the game with poses and used our time to make new poses in almost every update to make the customizable pose system. There are too many technicalities involved with the joints, limbs, and the frames, and everything that might seem humanoid at first, but isn't like that at all when working with M.A.S.S units that we will outright decline working on customizable poses. Okay, so that is completely off the table. Interesting that they can't get that working. I'm assuming it might be too difficult for them. It might mess around with things too much. That's the only thing I can guess from that. Like the customizable one, I imagine it's animating the frame between different poses, and that's about it. Whereas to have the customization to select your own poses, it'd almost be like making a hanger all over again to select the limbs and move them and stuff like that. That's possibly why they're not doing it. Interesting. This person here says, will we be able to bring poses into from photography mode into gameplay itself? Like assigning poses from the menu and pressing a button to show those emotes? Oh, I see. Yeah, so kind of like an RPG game where you can either toggle or put certain poses on a button and then press it. We're unable to do something like this because we don't have enough buttons already. Yeah, that's true if they're going off controller. We don't mean keyboard, since we're trying to make players playing with controllers have the best possible experience. We don't want to alienate that system. And with a system where they won't have enough buttons. That makes sense. Although, I'm trying to think, did they use the buttons on the sticks? Because sticks and then having a like a toggleable rotating wheel menu might work there, but Classic says, I enjoy M.A.S.S builders, it's fun. It's time consuming when you're working on a game. I agree, but DLCs could be nice. Yeah, I'm just trying to see like what we get out of this at the moment. Hunter T says, are there any particular features that you wanted to add and that you had to put on the back burner but might come back in future? One particular system that we've never talked about but has been in design since 4.0 is a weak point system. on bosses that would allow us to scale ranged weapons damage down. Wait, what? Since they can aim at weak points to utilize the system, while melee players can get high damage swings, and even higher if they get a chance to aim at these weak... That makes no sense, nerfing ranged players while giving more advantage to melee weapons? That's weird, because that heavily... Like, just reading that straight out of the gate there, just taking that at face value, that's like, okay, so if you're aiming at weak points and you're using, like, long-range weapons, then basically you're nerfed. Your damage isn't going to be as high, output-wise. That's a bit weird. We never had a chance to work on this because the game still works fine with the current combat system. We hope to be able to work on it sooner than later. Since there's now people telling others that there's no reason to use things other than shooters, when we wanted a game where no one has to feel pressured to play something because it's better and play however they wanted. Without this system in play, we can't do anything except watch players melt bosses with ease. I imagine that's frustrating for them. That's probably going to be really frustrating for them, but like, the way that they implemented the shield system on one of the bosses or enemies was pretty good as a way of kind of stopping ranged players melting stuff really easily. If they did something like that, maybe, and then threw an enemy like that into the mix-up, that wouldn't be too bad. I don't think it's a right way to nerf range stuff. It's more a case of coming up with, or at least I think it would be better, coming up with enemy mixes for the spawns, where there's an actual enemy that shields things more often, or in different ways, or maybe different enemies, when they're in a low health state, can pop like a shield or something. That would be a lot easier to kind of solve that mix-up, just a little bit. It's kind of weird, like, I can understand from their point of view, they don't like feeling like there's only one option, you know, especially because, yeah, I think I'm guilty of saying this really early on, where it's like, because shooters definitely seem to have an advantage in damage-wise, it's like, why would you play anything else? Well, the thing is, melee, if you take melee and the slash energy weapons that you can get, the orbital ones that fly either side of your suit, if you keybind those to the same controller, and then melee with a pretty stacked melee build, you can actually do quite a lot of damage really rapidly. So I think it's more just a case of encouraging players to go in for that mix-up a little bit more by changing how the enemies act, as instead of nerfing the player. Hey, Axis! Then there's a photography mode upgrade as well. And the aforementioned sharing system. There's also much requested frame skirt removals, dialogue, replay system and stuff. There's too many things we want to put out, but alas, we don't have enough hands nor time. I think it sounds like they're pressuring themselves for time here. It's like, in terms of the game itself, just keep slowly releasing these updates. Like, I'm sure a lot of the fans will agree they don't mind waiting as long as the game isn't buggy and it handles really well and is optimized decently so it doesn't run at a low frame rate. You know, people will be more than happy to wait as long as the content keeps coming out and as long as there's updates on it. So, unless there's some external pressure that we don't know about, don't feel pressured into rushing these things. You know, especially by fans. Fans are just excited. Can you provide several M.A.S.S presets for beginners? He means M.A.S.S with full accessories. No. We will provide full armor sets and parts already. You can even enter into the armor menu and randomize everything at the start. Oh, I see. So the reason why they're not doing presets is because you can randomize things. I think that's because people want the ability, by the sound of it, to have presets kind of like what's already showing up in game rather than spending time making them. But again, this game, it does require a lot of your time if you're building. People want to skip out on that and just enjoy stuff and be like, okay, here's a preset for this that we can build off maybe, or use for the time being. And I can understand why the devs haven't put that in. They're just like, no, if you want to build something, do it yourself. That's part of the fun, is building. So I can see why they've done that. It's just the way that it's worded here is maybe a little bit too strong. Or maybe too bluntly. Jack says, my question is, if it will be possible in future updates to insert Steam Workshop where you can download all the mecha uploaded from whoever wants from the community. Have you ever considered opening your creative Steam Workshop? They say, no, we will not use Steam Workshop in Mass Builder due to various factors including backers exclusivity. Wait, what? We want our backers to feel special with their creations officially in our game. You can still share builds through a preset system and anywhere when it's finished, but not through Steam Work. That's a weird answer, that. Like, because Steam Workshop works kind of the same way as the third-party stuff, where if you want to upload something, there's an option for it, but you don't have to feel pressured by it, and if you don't want to, you don't have to. That's incredibly strange, that. Because it would make it available to a larger group of people than having to join the Discord or find somewhere where somebody's linked the build and then find the third-party the third-party app to do it, especially considering they've not got the in-game ability to share builds at the moment. That's weird. Okay. Classic says, my game isn't finished. I understand the pressure with it. I'm a one-man army, and the patience is a key thing when designing for new platforms. Definitely. Fans, I feel like I speak for a lot of people when, especially from experience, fans are okay with waiting quite a lengthy amount of time, provided that during that time there are updates that clearly show progression still, and there's something put out in between. So say like there's a mini update with some more accessories or something. Provided there's something there, fans are more than happy to wait like so many months, or a year or whatever. Because look at how long it is since the last update already. Can photography mode include a background with a clear ground space, or can it simply use existing level as a background, or can you make a green screen background or a PNG transparent layer? PNG transparency would be great for this. We will continue to add more backgrounds into the game. We will try to work out a piece where the mass unit can look to be standing on a ground, but the game won't have any green screens or clear transparent backgrounds. Oh, that would be great for editing or something, but okay, I can understand that. It would be great if there was an option for, like, just tweaking the color of the background yourself to create your own green screen, but I don't know how hard that is for the devs to implement that. Like, I can think off the top of my head a way of going around that, but it's a case of, is it easy for them to implement based off what they've been saying already? It's increasingly looking like it's either a case of we've got a lot more stuff that's important in front of us before we get to this, or just we can't do this. Adjust the interface to increase the function of the module of the same name can only show the highest level module and display engine skeleton or OS level. That's written in a weird way. This is certainly something extra that we will have to deny. The reasons for each and every module and the tuning system is treated as an individual piece, not as part of a line. We can't hide the lower levels. Yeah, I understand. So what they're saying is maybe just like hide some of the interface so that it's not taking forever to go past everything or scroll up or whatever. While I understand that, or at least that's what it looks like, the way that it's done here and the way that the devs are saying it's done, they can't just simply do that because of the way they've designed it. It's fine. It's not like a big deal anyway. Let's see here. When copying the appearance of the mass, can the parts be copied? Sometimes I don't want to copy the whole mass. Yeah, that'd be great if we could just copy like arms or legs or a head. When this will be doable when we can work on the aforementioned preset system. Okay, so maybe in future, but basically don't hold your luck. Okay. That'd be great if that can be introduced in like another update, like probably for like the 1.0 update. Anonymous says, can editing of mass and weapons be integrated into the same room and have different areas that can be switched through the lens to make the weapon adjustment and body adjustment more convenient? Oh, I see. So you're not having to go between different menus and stuff. Yeah, that would be more streamlined. While we understand about how going back to the lobby menu and into the other customization menu is sometimes a chore, the two rooms work in different ways, so we don't want to clutter the menu by having tons of buttons to press. We'll investigate it further if we can make a swap button to swap rooms without going back into the lobby. I imagine what it is it's because of Unreal, it uses like map files and stuff. I don't know whether this is actually how it's done, but I imagine the two different areas, like the hangar and the weapons menu, are different maps that have different coding for each map to be able to work the way that they do separately. So it might be possible to just put a button in there that just says change map, but the problem is if you do that, I don't know whether that would flow into each other really well. Right? Like, that's just my basic take of it. Again, it's a whole thing of would it break stuff as well. It's going to be interesting to see if they can actually implement that. It would be nice, though, to streamline things. Can you add some consumables to the game to use up the extra credits? Yeah, because of people just having so many credits right now. We're planning for more credit spending, but just as we mentioned last year, there are a lot of people who still do not have enough credits to unlock everything that's unlockable in the game, so we're not in a hurry to do it. That makes sense. There should be something right before 1.0 release or after that. Okay. Because, like, you can just easily keep playing the game if you want right now and just farm everything until you get enough to buy everything in the game. I want to be able to move the perspective more freely when building. Okay. We consider the current one that allows the players to rotate the zoom camera and freely focus on parts already free enough. We will not work on a non-focusing floating camera system. Okay, interesting. So the person asked this. I kind of get this idea that what they want is a completely free floating camera where they can just go anywhere on the model and look from any angle. That would be great, but I imagine the reason why it's not done like that is probably because the way that we're looking at the model right now, there's nothing behind it. As in, like, where the camera's facing, I imagine there's nothing behind the camera to kind of optimize the hangar area. So if they did make a free floating camera, they'd have to make the hangar bigger, they'd have to add more stuff into it, then potentially the frame rate would drop more as a result of more stuff being on screen or more details being there. It's interesting, that one. I don't know. I can't remember whether there is an option for that. Oh, no, wait. I could be wrong. I think, because I've not been into the game for quite a while now, like 4 or 5 months properly. I couldn't remember whether the hangar actually has a full 3D environment or not. I think there is one when you spin it around, because there is an ability to spin. That's kind of weird then, thinking about it that way. You know. Huh. I wonder if in a real engine, and if they're using another engine in the pipeline, it would explain it's this classic. If they're using Unreal Engine 4 for this, specifically. Here we go. Will some features of Williams' save tool be incorporated into the game, such as skeleton regulation function and save file extraction function? While we don't use Williams' save, as it would affect and influence our ideals for the game, we do acknowledge and honor the tool as one of the most useful tools out there that's helped our game a lot. We prefer players to expose themselves to the tool and see what's extremely beneficial to them and have a discussion with us on how we could upgrade the official in-game systems to perform some of those functions. On that note, things like going over and under the limits of frame expansion isn't something we will do. File sharing is covered in the preset. So that's a shame then, because Williams' main thing with his tool is the ability to share stuff, which they've covered, and then obviously editing the mass scale. That's what everybody likes right now. So basically, they flat out denied everything other than preset stuff or save sharing, which, you know, it's going to be great when it's actually in there, but it's a shame that they can't seem to work out the whole thing, or at least try and implement a system better for extending the frame. Can you add a new module in the adjust module or binding with the OS architecture module to make players, make it so players can set the action of the body template, such as higher power, heavy, fighting, shooting, fire suppression, and the actual body movements also differ according. Oh, so basically make the mech move how it should at that weight class. So say, for instance, a heavy mech will feel a lot slower or whatever. That would be cool. Excuse me. They say, no, as we wanted tunings and text to mean nothing to the players and the aesthetics. Okay. This would break the rule of having players use anything for their looks. While I agree with that, is this nothing that can be done as like a separate option to kind of influence play a little bit? That would be so cool. Like, people have been on about this for ages, like, oh, we have a really heavy mech that, well, it looks like a heavy mech. It moves around at like the speed of lightning. Is there anything we can do to like slow this down or kind of imply that it's heavy, or, you know, that it's got different weight to it? And they're just like, nah. While I agree with what they're saying in terms of like they don't want it to affect the player's customization, and it definitely is a good thing that they're thinking more about players and customization and making that a key feature. You know, it is the main thing why people come to Mass Builder, and it should be a key focus. But I think for gameplay-wise, that should at least be looked into and potentially experimented with to see whether you can give that little bit of an option to the players that want that. You know, maybe do like a poll for people saying whether they want this or not. Because if it turns out that, yeah, they want it, then there's no reason not to try and implement it if there's a large amount of people that want it. I still stand by this for, like, every game that I come into, you know, and play and get really in-depth with now, where it's like, if the option is there for the players to do something, then it's great. But if there's no option, or if you're forcing them to do a certain thing, you're going to get a bit of backlash because players don't want to feel like they're forced into a certain way of playing, or if there's no option there, it feels kind of limiting. Having those options there and available would be great and allow more customization or more expression on top of what we already have. It's just a shame that it's flat out denied. Let's see here. This is just story and missions. Sebastian's asking about the story, something I didn't pay too much attention to, unfortunately. Let's just skip past this bit a little bit, and then he plans to flesh out more story and make it so we can interact with the characters more. Flesh out the story, yes. We don't have more voice acting in the game yet due to dialogues and story missions that can still change. Interaction from us with NPCs, I don't think that's what we'll do. Oh, that would be cool. But, you know, okay. Will you guys add any new mechanics? For single player, there's always something new to play with. For multiplayer, we plan to add more complex mechanics which cannot be done in single player. Okay, I don't know what they mean there, but possibly co-op something? Could you give us a taste of more Cyclops lore? We won't spoil it, that's for the future. Okay. Can you expand on Quantum Break? The entry does not mention the supercharged quantum particle. Currently not something we look forward to. The entry just left it like that just in case we do something in future for the 9.0 update. Okay. Interesting. Classic says it's sad that it's denied. Yeah, it's sad, but again, it's whatever they can manage within, you know, the small team that they've got. Here we go. Remember the first Q&A saying that there will be some low-gravity missions. When will they be implemented? Yeah, sorry, that's not happening, basically. We won't make this possible due to the game's how the game's development has been progressed, and our designs have conflicted with the possibilities of making it. Okay, so yeah, it sounds like development for them is getting harder and harder as things go on. That's normal with game development. It's possibly that when you develop things, you get to a point where stuff starts breaking as you start trying to implement and fixing more stuff. Just more stuff breaks. So it sounds like they're getting to a point where more stuff is breaking or it's causing other problems than they originally thought. That's just me assuming right now, but kind of sounds like it. So they don't want to try and push things so in case it breaks more stuff. I hope for more mecha bosses. There will be more in later missions. Okay, that's cool. Where will new missions start animation be added? Or not in the near future. We don't want to make more. It's a low priority. Yeah, that's fair enough, you know. It's not that it's really needed to begin with, because we've got the catapult shooting off thing. That's still good on its own. I know there will at least be one map coming that will have multiplayer, but will multiplayer functionality eventually be added to the campaign missions? And related, will difficulty increase with the number of players on a team? No, multiplayer and campaign missions are separate entirely. There will be no story progression through multiplayer available. On the topic of difficulty, yes, enemies will scale depending on how many there are per mission. Okay. So it's kind of like you're playing your own side mission or something that's just completely separate when you go into multiplayer. That's fine. Hey, Proof! How you doing? Will you be able to import your M.A.S.S build into multiplayer, at least cosmetically? It would be a real pain to build it from scratch just to play multiplayer again. Don't worry, multiplayer will use the same setup system, so you don't have to worry about building anything new. You can use your old units, and there'll be a separate tuning page for PvP, while PvE co-op setup remains the same ones you use in single player. Okay, interesting. That's cool, because that means I can just bring all, 100 and odd of my Gundams in. Are there any plans to deal with players using inappropriate or insensitive armor designs? No, because we don't know what different players classify as inappropriate or insensitive. Okay, nice. Let's get into this. Everyone has a different classification of those things. Every multiplayer room has a lobby, though, and even with a quick join, so you can opt out of the lobby before it starts. Or if you're the host, you can kick somebody before you start the game as well. You can't change your unit, so there'll be no surprise swap. Okay, so maybe add, for lobbies then, this is to the devs, maybe some sort of, ability to see what the person's unit is before you go into the game would be great then, to avoid problems with this, because I agree with the whole thing of everybody's classification of inappropriate or insensitive is different, so you can't enforce that as a developer like that. It's down to the community, which is why obviously you're providing a kick feature. That's great, but the people in the lobby need to be able to see what the problem is if they want to get rid of it, you know. So maybe something like that can be worked on, I don't know. But I do agree with them there. I agree with them that they're not going to police the content there, because one, it's just not doable for them. And two, it's the whole thing of everybody else has their own idea of, what is and what isn't. So they don't want to police everybody's right to self-expression. That's fair enough. When will PvP mode be on? Oh, in version 1.0. I think that's 1.0. 0.1. Oh no, it might be 10 there? I don't know. Will multiplayer be linked to our current single-player campaign? Yes, you will be able to use single-player progression and creations in multiplayer. However, wait a minute, what? Oh, I get it. They said progression won't happen in multiplayer, but they've said the progression that you've made already will be able to be used in multiplayer. Okay. However, all PvP nodes will be unlocked from the start for everybody, even with zero progression. Okay, that's cool. So they're opening it up to people, so PvP will be where you can freely go in and try everything out. Will there be multiplayer ranking? no, to quote last year, we haven't thought about ranked as well. Just so you know, we're not making an esports game, so we're not going at it that way at all. That's fine. I like that. Having it be more casual and open to the community is, I think, the better option. It'd be nice to have like a ranking list, but yeah, I can see why that's not the priority, and keeping it sort of casual or leaving it to fans to do like a ranking list, I think is way easier to go about it right now. That's cool. I definitely support the other things still about customization and stuff in multiplayer lobbies. I can't get over that. I'm happy about that. I wish GBO2 had a clan set up like that, says Classic. Sorry, I was typing. It's fine, it's fine. Will there be a roguelike or global conquest mode? Aside from the modes we've teased, there will be no new modes as of yet. That'd be cool to kind of invade somebody's multiplayer mode, but I think that might be too difficult for them. I don't know. What about the balance? PvE online co-op will use the same balancing we have in single player, but it will be scaled as they've said before, because we want players to feel the power that they want to show. Oh, I see. I get you. PvP balancing will be totally different in tuning parts and status. You can read more here. Will there be any space or underwater missions? No, we've lost the means to travel into space, and underwater isn't something that is feasible. There are too many rules to change, as we can't make it the same as a ground mission. So they wanted to make it something more unique, but because they can't do that, seemingly, without either breaking stuff or because it's too hard, they're not going to implement it. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. I appreciate the whole thing of them actually sounding like they wanted to make it unique here. Because I was going to say that earlier on as a suggestion. I was like, thinking in the back of my head, and I'm like, the Dynasty Warriors games just animated your unit slightly different, and that kind of worked. But obviously they want to put more effort into it than that. You know, like Dynasty Warriors Gundam just changed your animation, but of course they want to do something different, so because they can't do what they want there, or seemingly it'll take too much time or interfere too much, they're not going to do it. Sabasa says, as of current, automatic weapons are notably stronger from the other ones due to the hit scan. Yep. Is the latter an intentional attribute? It is intentional. Let's talk about why shooters are mostly stronger. In essence, the downside of shooters are the amount of bullets. Yeah, because if you don't have any ammo left, it's pretty hard to get stuff until you kill something else. But there's almost non-existent due to how we never wanted players to feel bad about running out of ammo. Enemies will sometimes drop out, or will always drop ammo when players' ammo stock gets low. The lower it gets, the higher the chance. This allows the player to constantly move away and firing and shooting from a distance, which feels satisfying, yep. Constantly without dealing damage without taking any risks. The constant damage is high enough with tuning that it melts bosses with no risk at all. This happened because our game's designer wants everybody to feel the fun in having power, and has constantly been taking actions to adjust the power of certain things when the players suggest changes to improve them. Melee, on the other hand, receives higher defense when they spec into pure offense, so they don't get hurt when attacked and can retaliate properly. And we've been raising its damage and its defense and enemies' attack every update. However, the last update, there are toxicity towards players who don't use the most overpowered things, and towards our games designer. Oh, that's interesting. Like, I wouldn't say I was toxic about this. Personally, from my point of view, I literally was just like, well, it's designed in such a way now that I don't really see the reason to melee. Plus, at the time, I had hand injuries, so it was a lot easier to play the game with range weapons. But that's kind of nasty if people are getting toxic towards the devs because of this. I don't agree with that. There are demands as well as condescending discussions in certain topics made against our games designer. We've seen players talk about how they know how to manipulate or demand our games designer to change certain things. How to complain effectively and change the game to what they want. This is not healthy at all, and we've decided it's time to revert some of the changes and return them to what we've wanted since the start of developing our game and lessen the player's power. Definitely the devs, I don't think the devs should cave into stuff like that. That's disgusting. That's the first. That's the first time I've heard about this kind of stuff from the community. That's disgusting, manipulating the developers into doing stuff like that. That's not right. The nature of hit scam won't change, and the ammo drop won't change. We want players to have fun. Yeah, that's fair. But without investments towards certain stats, as much as mag, load, energy recharge, or acceleration, players won't have the same amount of power. The ceiling is still there, it's that the floor is much lower now. Spending investments should counteract the total power of the unit. We will also add certain systems that will allow us to lower shooters' damage against bosses, like a weak point system mentioned in this AMA. PvP won't use the same techs as PvE, and it'll be much harder to constantly shoot without a curve of ammo in the world. Defense will be important, and defense through speed and constantly dodging is also maintained and goes into the conjunction with shooting. So, for that, then maybe lower the amount of ammo drops so that ranged players still eventually have to do a little bit more melee then. It's either that or, like I said before, potentially look at having more shielded enemies in missions in future, because that nerfs shooting quite a lot until a shield drops. Like, you can still melt enemies, but your timer on your level, like to overall completion, would significantly increase. Unless you were getting inside of enemy shields with it like a melee build. So it makes melee builds more viable while also not really nerfing shooting heavily, but you definitely don't give into manipulation or nasty toxicity from fans. Jesus. Axis says, hand damage PTSD from DDR Night Gundam. Oh no, even before that I had hand damage. Blitz says, the issue is that if you min-max range, the melee gets to be so weak that it basically does no damage. Let the devs do their own thing, but definitely instead of... I assume the fans aren't happy, says John. Definitely not by the looks of it. There's some nasty toxicity going on. I don't know where this is either. Like, I'd like to be able to at least just glean some of this and see who's actually doing this, because that's disgusting. Like, as a dev, that's going to put not so much a lot of pressure on you, but it's going to get you really angry and upset at the same time that a community is doing something like that when you're doing loads to try and give them freedom of expression and give them a good game. You know, that's disgusting from the, what I assume is a minor portion of the community, but they sound terrible. Probably the Sekai Project Discord. Probably. On that note, we know that players who don't care about what's the best thing ever and just want to play how they want, and we still support those players. Definitely support the casual player on this. Like, the casual player base that just wants to do their own thing and just wants to have fun and can get fun out of almost every part of the game. I'd target, if it was me, I'd target them, because at least you know they're probably going to be the majority of players. You know. Anything that's casual tends to be more well received than something that's a complete sweat fest. You know, the most recent, at the point of doing this stream, the most recent game that I can think of off the top of my head that has benefited more in the past from being a casual game is the Halo series up until Infinite, and now Halo Infinite has been complained about so much because it is a competitive sweat fest. You know, before it was casual, everybody enjoyed it, it had a large supporting community, now it doesn't. So go for the more casual player base. That's my advice, but I'm just one person, you know. Maybe I'm not saying the right thing, or maybe that's going to annoy some people, but I do think targeting the casual player base would be way better. I just want to have fun, says Blitz. Let me do some dumb stuff. I had to unsense that. I don't know whether you guys can see that, but people like this that manipulate them, they'll say they're fans, but nobody, like, no decent person would go to the point of manipulation or trying to directly contact the dev and be like, dude, you're crap, you know, just do this, otherwise you're not good at your job, or something similar, which I imagine they've been getting. You know, because we see stuff like that for other games. It's I'm really annoyed for the devs by that now. It's a nasty reaction to see. Like, every dev has to put up with it at some point, but I didn't expect it from M.A.S. because I thought M.A.S. was actually better than that. Seemingly, we now have that small portion, or at least I think it is, a small portion of the community that is just completely toxic and needs to really be kicked out. Or at least told, look, this isn't acceptable. What made you guys give us tech's 6-second cooldowns? Increase the damage per proc. Didn't feel like it made the skill any useful at all, says Thigh. To make the weak versions that had no cooldown, such as cryo-coated metals, which now is never used as opposed to 0.75, which at least had a little use in some builds. How come you guys decided to make that decision? Thanks very much for an amazing game. See, I've seen Thighs on, Thigh Highs, sorry, I should say. I've seen that user on the community Discord quite a lot. They're really good at building as well. Good comment there, and nice way to, I'm just going to highlight that, nice way to actually thank the devs for this stuff, because that'll give them at least a little bit of a smile, and a perk up after all this negativity. We have certain percentages of damage that we should be able to be done towards enemies in a single second. This damage is increased or decreased in conjunction with whatever the source is getting attacked, or attacking, or ending a combo, whatever. Then we also factor in the utility it provides, in this case, of freeze. The abnormal status is extremely effective against groups of enemies. In this case, though, we do think 6 seconds is too long, and in 0.9 it'll be reduced to 4. Okay. Classic says, I agree, M.A.S. builder updates, hope it works out. Range is a thing, but don't give in to nasty chat devs. Yeah, that's classic in chat, basically. Like, if the devs watch this at some point, just be like, that's another person agreeing and being like, look, don't give in to this stuff. It's the speedrunning community that's doing the forced meta stuff, says Blitz. Like, speedrunners, this is going to get me in trouble, I think, a little bit, so I've got to be careful of how I word this. Speedrunners do a really good job of finding issues with the game in terms of balancing, but that doesn't give you the right to dictate to the devs what should and shouldn't be fixed based on how you play the game, because speedrunning is totally different to playing the game normally, and they already know that. I've done a speedrunning competition in the past. I won money for it. I enjoy playing like that, but it doesn't mean that I go around to people and say, oh, if you're playing melee, then you're not good. Like, sure, we'll have competitive banter where somebody will be like, okay, I was using melee and I got this time, and I'll be like, you could just get a quicker time if you just use range. But the reason why I say stuff like that is because my idea, like this example that I'm giving you now, my idea of playing this specific mission that I'm thinking of, it was one of the ice missions, I think after mission 10, the entire area is a large open map that you have to go between points to activate them. And to me, it didn't make sense having close range weapons because every enemy spawns a fair distance away from you. So my idea of making it faster for a speedrunning competition was to take guns in, because that way I'm not having to fly towards an enemy to hit them. That makes sense that way. But instead of taking a melee build, which takes a little bit longer to hit things, because then you're having to get closer, or you're having to do quantum or blade wave stuff to hit them at range, again, that makes sense, but I'm not going to go out to a person who likes playing melee and be like, dude, you suck, get lost, That's not right. That's not right. Nobody has the right to dictate to anybody how they should or shouldn't play. Let's see here. Will players be ever allowed to use more than 2 energy launchers at a time, perhaps 4? There is... Oh, no, there isn't one that's with 4 already. I was thinking of the ones that act like funnels from Gundam. We've not yet designed all types of energy launchers we wanted to make, with the beam being a large one. There can be a group of 4 in some configuration in the future. Oh, okay. Exram says, sometimes people just try to give criticism for something to be better, or someone, but sometimes it goes overboard, and that's what everyone should avoid. Indeed. Indeed. I have to be careful with this, because I'm starting to sound more like Moody than myself here right now. Like, I'm getting really upset for the devs here right now. There are some systems we wanted to... oh, here we go. Combat is really fun. Like the first one, but it really falls off and gets stale. Is there any plans to make combat more interesting? Beam weapons have different combos, or special attacks we get with certain mech parts. That'd be cool. There are some systems we wanted to make to add depth to combat, such as the weak point system for bosses, which they've already mentioned twice now. Parts affecting gameplay will be denied, though. Yeah, because that then affects customization. We've just upheld we always have upheld the philosophy of aesthetics separated from gameplay that will change and force players to use certain parts only, and we don't want that. I understand that. I stand by them in terms of they want to continue having people have the freedom of expression without feeling like they're tied to a certain part. That's fine. I agree with that. Well, I do think that maybe like we could have still like different ways to switch up combat, maybe through like the parts tree that they've got already, maybe expanding that or doing something with that. So it influences things that way. I don't think, and I definitely don't agree with the whole thing of maybe making it parts specific. Translation here. Will there be power-up skills or supporting skills or specific ones that cater to certain things, such as Knuckles allowing you to attack faster, stunning enemies if using a mace, piercing shot for snipers? That'd be cool. Again, this is what I just talked about if it was in the skill tree. No, we will not make certain techs or skills that force players to use certain weapons or parts. If we're making one, it will be universal for that type of weapon, like we've always done. Something like melee weapons can cause explosions. That's fine then. Maybe just make it so, because you don't really have sniper rifles. We have the cannons, the machine guns, the shotguns, energy launchers, focused beams, rapid energy launcher thing, the shotgun, and then the grenades. So just make it, it's like one of the, I mean, this is me saying it in a very simplistic way now. Maybe one of the nodes could be done so like all beam weapons have piercing. You know, something like that. Or all beam style weapons have piercing. I don't know. It's just me thinking out loud here at this point. In the future, will skills have like an ultimate move? Maybe an elemental one or a final elemental attack? I love the gameplay, but the mission design has no interest, like limitation to move, skill, shoot, slash, or punch. Aside from quantum break and energy launchers, we don't think we'll add more combat actives that require the press of a button. But we'll make sure some of the techs that make quantum break do some awesome interactions, but not more than that. That's fair enough. That's basically, we might upgrade stuff in future. We'll see about it. That's fine. Will there be a way to earn credits besides doing missions, such as selling materials? We aren't actively thinking about those systems yet, but it's been asked every year, and we're not denying it. We've buffed the credits gain, and our data shows that players can continue to play and obtain the amount they need to unlock everything within a few days of playing. Yeah, that's true. If you just keep doing stuff over and over again, or if you're building for stuff, or when a new update comes out. Visual customizations are a great element of the game already, but gameplay feels very lacking, does it? What were you expecting then? I'm sorry, but what were you expecting? You can make a cool mech, but then ask yourself, what do I do with it? Are there any plans to address this issue? There's an entire game to play? You know, I don't want to sound negative, but what were you expecting from this game? The gameplay at its basic level is fine. You know, there are a few systems we wanted to add. Like, I wish this person, before continuing, I wish this person would have explained more, like, any ideas that they had, because that just kind of sounds snarky a little bit. When you read it like that. Might not be, and I'm sorry if I'm jumping to conclusions for anybody that watches this in future, you know, or if this person here that's left this, if you watch this in future, I'm sorry. I really don't mean to sound aggressive. I would have liked it when reading through this, especially because of how the rest of the video has gone. I would have liked you to actually address this more by saying or giving examples of what you think they could do, you know, because then I wouldn't be kind of coming at this as if I'm like, well, what more do you want? You know. Let's see. I gotta calm down here, Jesus. It's that initial sort of toxicity that we got before in comments that I'm definitely not happy about for the devs. I normally get really defensive, and because of how passionate I am about this game and the devs behind it, I'm getting really worked up here. Definitely more moody at the moment. However, the core gameplay stays the same. It's something we've had fun with and cannot change much. That's fair enough. The game is required to allow all types of players to be able to play with ease, but we have emphasis on allowing the players to play pretty much how they want. And with a lot of our players being kit builders, yep, we don't want to stress the gameplay to be too difficult or extremely difficult in depth. We're making a playground for builders to pit their creations against enemies. That's fair enough. I understand that. That's at a basic point. It's like, oh, okay. Thank you very much. Okay, let's get on with this. So, let's look at the discussion here if we can. Okay, there are plans for more variations of shooters. The way that parts complement melee power has much higher armor part than people that do speed and range already. That's fair enough. We do plan to widen this gap, so players who opted into melee will have a moderate amount of defense. So basically, they're making melee tanky. That's cool. And can spec into higher knight unstoppable force if they want. That sounds really good. I like the sound of that. Let's see. So basically, the melee will be a mix between a tank and a powerhouse, provided you spec it right. We're trying to improve the combat system. Blah blah. If people aren't satisfied with what we have, we encourage them to talk to us first and foremost, provided you do it in a constructive way that isn't toxic or manipulative. No, then that's fine. The devs will like that kind of feedback, but if it sounds nasty or you're just being nasty, they're not going to respond to it well. Could you optimize the quantum break? In 9.0, it's getting better. Okay. Will walking action be added to M.A.S.S, such as walking at a low movement speed? No, there's no reason to walk. Okay, that's fine. This is about languages. Future development plans. Is there a roadmap? Or do you think it'll be ported to consoles in future? This is one that I asked really early on in development. Like when we were playing the demo. We do plans to port it to console. And when the game is out of early access, whenever that will happen. Huh. Interesting. I might do something about that. We'll allow those players to play on those platforms to play with Steam players for sure. So yeah, they want it to be cross-platform with consoles. That's going to be cool. Of course there's a reason to walk. It's called swag, says Proof. Aside from the multiplayer, what are the game modes you update? We've mentioned about this before. Co-op and stuff. Post 1.0, will you be holding polls for the community to pick themes of future content packs, like DLC or whatever? We haven't thought that far, but there are some type of armor parts that are extremely far from the normal ones in M.A.S. that we're thinking of adding, or that we're thinking of already. Some might be turned into accessories first, like humanoid parts. Ooh, cool. When can we expect voice support for our fellow NPCs? When the game is ready to be shipped. Any features confirmed post 1.0, just beyond the Rex and Spider frames. Finish everything. That was promised in our Kickstarter campaign. That's the only end goal we're working towards right now. That's fair enough. Do everything that was promised in the Kickstarter, then we'll talk about other stuff in future. That's what I'm getting from that. Will the game support mods? No, but feel free to mod it however you want. Interesting. If that can be done, then interesting. Is there a chance in the future that Mass Builder will do updates of a smaller scale? Like once every couple of months or so? With the current pipeline, it's not possible. Ooh, interesting. More details about the pipeline? We'll continue working on other things as promised. It will always be a long wait for the big updates. That's fair enough. Smaller patches or updates something that Vermilion will... not something that Vermilion will do for Mass Builder. We're currently a 6-person team with everybody working on each part of the patch. That's fair enough. They really need a test team here. That looks like it. That says to me though, just that one little bit of line where it says smaller updates or stuff will require one of us, usually me, to take time off games design and put it into monitoring, reproducing bugs, testing the balance and making changes. They need a team of testers, really. But they probably can't afford one. This is like another thing in itself. Isn't allowing mods basically saying, if you want to do it so bad, do it yourself? Yeah, John. But it's kind of like that. It's basically saying, like, if you want to do mods, then just figure out how to do it, because while we maybe can't implement it ourselves, if you do end up doing it, we're not going to turn around and be like, oh, this isn't good or whatever, or we're not going to, like, work against you, you know, when you're creating mods or whatever. It literally sounds like, we'll support you if you do stuff like that and it works, but if not, then, you know, we're not going to spend time doing that because we want to work towards the 1.0 update, you know, the actual proper release version. I'm just going to leave it there for now, and then I'll do, like, part 2 another time. I was going to do the entire thing, but I've already done this for, like, an hour and 12 minutes. I actually am surprised as well about that. But yeah, while at the moment, again, like, let's go over this, it's sounding like, obviously, they want to work to the final goal of getting it out, getting this Kickstarter stuff done, so they can say, look, we've done everything that we promised. Then anything else after that, we'll look at and work on to try and improve the game. That's fair enough. I like that. Another takeaway from this, as part of like a bullet point thing here, is they're focused on not influencing or impacting customization or creativity in any part of the game. So if it's something that conflicts with their ideals of affecting how people build, it's not happening. That's as simple as. And I support them on that because it allows for more player expression and creativity. That's fine. I gotta go with them on that. That's the best way to go about this. Because when you start limiting stuff, that's when everything starts getting really crazy, because then you get backlash from people saying, oh, why can't I do this? Or why do I have to do this? Oh, and it brings up a hell of a lot more complaining than it needs to. A lot of these things that you'd expect them to, you know, implement after that, like some of the quality of life stuff that we've gone on about or other things, in part 1 at least, they're saying we can't do that, and I really think that is primarily down to the way that it's designed and potentially coded. This is just an assumption, and again, it's based off what I said before, but when you're developing a game, and this is going off experience with Mecha Knight's Nightmare more than anything else, when you're developing a game and trying to fix things, you find that further down the line, things will break unexpectedly that you thought were okay. And that has a knock-on effect that can then break more and more things. they obviously don't want that to happen, you know, no dev does, but it sounds like they're slowly reaching that point now where they can't implement as much as they would like for fear of breaking everything else. That's just an assumption, but it's what it sounds like based off what they've said already. I could totally be wrong, and I'm happy to be wrong. If the devs make a comment about this in future, if they come back and say, look, dude, we watched all of this, totally wrong on that, it's just too difficult for us to implement because of whatever reason, I'm fine to stand corrected, you know, but it's just how it sounds from an outsider's perspective at the moment. So, yeah, I don't think it's totally negative. It sounds like I like the fact that they're really focused on getting 1.0 out the door. That's great. And that everything else is kind of up in the air until they're done. They're really hammering away at it right now. Obviously, the one thing that I don't like, I've already mentioned about, so I'm not going to like that anymore, but it's less to do with them and more to do with the community. So the community themselves need to sort that stuff out. Apart from that, no, I'm happy with this first part. I just can't wait for more updates in future. So, yeah, I guess I'll give this a break and we'll do this other section, the second part of this, in another stream and see what we can glean from that as well. Anyway, thank you very much for sticking around with me, guys. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to come sit with me and leave your comments and stuff. To anybody that watched this all the way through, thank you very much. I appreciate your time. I hope you've enjoyed. I've appreciated everybody's company in chat, so I hope you've all had fun. And yeah, I'll see you on the next one. So until then, bye!